Everyone,
Lovely. Yes. Thanks for
thanks,
joining.
Yuri.
So, wanted to touch on a few things, and lately I've been thinking about dancing fundamentals. I think I might have mentioned to you some of that last time we spoke back in not even 2024, I think 2023. So it's been a while,
Maybe.
but I think I did when I start my journey. Basically, I was learning patterns, and I didn't realize right away that body movement and fundamental movement techniques not always predicated on patterns. It's predicated sort of on understanding how to move and how your body works. So, just kind of wondering from your perspective, have you had moments of where kind of light bulb went off in terms of understanding how to move, and how did you approach this entire process?
I guess the first thing I would say is like I totally agree with you. I'm a little disappointed in a lot of classes, to be honest, because I think a lot of people are just heavily relying and leaning on patterns. And I think
Mm-hmm.
patterns are one tool to be used, but they're kind of like the one of the last steps when you're trying to like put things together. um, So I think it's a pretty natural thing that a lot of people feel, because I know a lot of people when they come to dance dojo, they're saying, "Hey, my teachers just teach patterns. I'm not learning the body movement or the technique or the whatever that I need." So they're looking to fill those gaps. So what you felt is definitely being felt by a lot of people. I felt it too, and I would say, um, I'm trying to remember the question. Sometimes I go off on a tangent on my own. Can you remind
Yeah,
me?
yeah, yeah. So basically, I was just wondering if you've had some aha moments, light bulb moments when you realize there was something you did not do from the beginning, and then you had to kind of course correct.
Okay,
And I
gotcha,
just
gotcha.
wonder how you kind of handle that.
Yeah, so I would say I did the very regular journey of taking classes with various teachers. I eventually found some teachers that I really liked. I got my fundamentals and foundations from them, training
Hmm.
for a couple of years. Um, but then you're never going to get everything you need from one set of teachers. And you're probably not going to do everything that they tell you to do, like practice your basics every day. If you
Right.
want to look good, you should probably practice body movement. And then what do you do when you go home? You don't do it. And so you get further along the journey, and maybe you feel like, at least for me, I've always really liked partner work. So I've got to this point where just learning something harder doesn't really make the dance better because a lot of the times you can't do a lot of the stuff you learn in really hard classes with most of your partners. So you're like, well, what is going to make this fulfilling for me as a dancer, regardless if I'm dancing with a new person or like your favorite pro that you find at a congress? And what that is basically like body movement and musicality. Like I think those two things together are like the magic that we're all really looking for and the things that we really admire when we're watching people in person on Instagram, on YouTube, whatever. And so one of the light bulb moments I had was, hey, sometimes I'm going out and like I'm not really having that much fun because like I'm not getting to do that crazy pattern that I learned in class. And that's fair enough. Like that's not the people's fault at the social. That's my fault that I don't have the tools to have fun on my own, or the way I'm defining the way I'm dancing is not allowing me to have fun. So there's like a light bulb moment there, and it's like, well, how do I do this? It's well, get back to my body movement because I wasn't able to express myself fully to the music that I was hearing with the partners I was dancing with. So I would say that was the main light bulb movement for me, and then slowly just started chipping away at it like most people. There was no like um, super shortcut. It's just like putting in that work. So
So I'm glad you mentioned that because with body movement in particular, I think there are just so many elements to it. Was there any one particular thing that really made a difference that you felt like, oh, that was a game changer? I did this and it really contributed to my improvement a lot.
um, I think like and just the cliche thing of just like consistency. So one thing that I did when I came to Medellin, I went to a school. It's called Al Mambo, and they really focus on what I think their strengths are body movement and musicality. Um, And so that's what I would try and do is try and find teachers or classes where that is the strength, and just surround yourself with people who are already doing it or are already really good at those movements, so that it's kind of like monkey see, monkey do. You're a baby, you're just absorbing everything from your environment. Um, you're going to get better, one kind of by osmosis, just because your brain is going to like see it a lot and then is going to kind of internalize what it's seeing
Hmm.
things a bit differently. The more I see something, or the more I see the model of how I want to move, it's going to be very helpful, because with my experience moving or doing sports or whatever, I'm going to be able to pick things up just kind of by looking at them. I do still need a technical explanation, which is very important. And I hope if you're teaching body movement, you're doing the best job you can to do the technical explanation. But then it's just like consistently doing it over time, because body movement is one of those things that does not come quickly for anyone. I think learning partner work, for example, if you just have a good teacher, you get told good technique, like you can kind of learn things quite quickly. But like
Hmm.
getting movements into your brain and creating all that network of connections that has to happen between up here through your nerves into your muscles, like takes a significant amount of time. And there's very few people who are going to be able to do it quickly. And if they can do it quickly, it might be because they grew up in, like a culture of salsa and they've seen it since they were kids, or
Hmm.
they've moved around. um, so it's honestly just consistency. Pick whatever exercise. Again, everything comes in layers. So, practice your basic step, but then when you're learning body movement, you want to practice your basic step and start adding, the hip, the torso movement, everything comes from the ground. So just learning one mechanically how it works and then practicing it every day, and then not trying to do it all at once. Because we're like, a lot of time we just look at Instagram, we're like, I want to look like my favorite dancer, but you're not going to look like your favorite dancer on day one or day 1000. It's going to take longer than that. And so just do, I don't know, it could be anything. Just, I'm going to stand in front of my mirror at home. Also, buy a mirror for your house. That's going to change your
Hmm.
life. And then just like, I'm going to move my shoulders, and I'm going to move my torso back and forth. And I'm just going to do this for like half a song, or until like it hurts. And then you do another exercise, another isolation, whatever you want. I'm just going to practice my steps. Okay, now I'm
Hmm.
going to practice my steps with my torso. It's not, I'm just going to throw it all in at once and go put it in my basic. So bit by bit, consistently over time, and that pays off.
Yeah. Oscillations. Well, I guess it's two-part question. First part, um, when did you start doing oscillations? And then, yeah, let's start with that actually to make it simple.
Um, I mean, hard question, because at some point in the salsa journey, you probably did a class and someone was telling you to do isolations. When did I actually really start practicing? And again, I wouldn't say I'm consistent. I would moment and I make like jump up in my progress, and then I kind of flatline,
Hmm.
and then I'll have moments of consist or weeks or whatever, and then I kind of make another jump. I think that's probably the most common thing. But if you want a shortcut, just do it every day, and you're going to have a straighter line in terms of
Right.
your progress.
Right.
Um, I would say a couple of years ago, I started really focusing on body movement more. And when I say focusing on body movement, it doesn't mean I'm practicing all the time, but in my head, it's like, okay, this is my new priority. And whenever I'm practicing solo or whenever I'm in a class, like I'm really going to prioritize that in my brain and make an effort to bring that in my dancing. So at home, I would practice isolations, like just learning how to, like, for example, if you want to get better at shoulders, like what are all the directions the shoulder joint can move? It can move up, it can move down, it can move forward, it can move back, it can rotate backwards, it can rotate forwards. And then when you're doing these isolations, you want to also, again, working on that kind of brain muscle connection, work on different timings. If let's say we have a song playing, you might just go 1, 3, 5, 7. And once you do that, that's usually where I start, because it's just a nice slow pace.
Hmm.
Then you can try the salsa rhythm. Quick, quick, slow. Quick, quick, slow. And again, you would do that in all directions. So you move your shoulders back and forth. 1, 3, 5, 7. Quick, quick, slow. quick, slow. And then you can also try and do it on every beat. So you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, you're just trying to strengthen that connection. And you can do that with every isolation you can imagine. And by then just getting better control of your body, then you can start trying to coordinate it in a salsa like way. So like just piece by piece instead of, oh, I'm going to try and add the salsa body movement to my basic. And I'm thinking about my steps, the way my knees are bending, my hips, my torso, my shoulders. It's just like too much at one time.
Yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense, actually. And funny enough, um, there are some professional dancers who do these workshops at congresses. Like, for example, Frankie Martinez did one in
Mm-hmm.
2023 when I in Chicago. I'm sure that there's probably some other ones that do it too. And I personally didn't realize the importance of it when I took the class first. And it's like only with time, I think you kind of start to understand how it all kind of pieces in together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right, man, because there's a lot to movement in general, and there's a lot uh, to understand about how energy should be passed through your body and what different parts of your body should be doing. And it definitely takes a lot of work. The other thing,
Absolutely. Sorry, can I jump in there? I'm curious what was kind of like your light bulb moment and when did you start focusing on it? 'Cause I'm pretty sure you do work on it.
yeah, yeah. So one big light bulb moment was when I started dancing on two, and the school where I started taking classes on two had different methodology, teaching methodology and syllabus. And so they made emphasis on body movement and individual work a lot more than my previous school. And so I started feeling like, okay, I have to bend my knees more. I have to move my rib cage and my shoulders more. And that movement pattern felt very different from like dancing on one and just doing patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started doing that and when I started practicing more with the intention on my knees and my shoulders and moving my hips, all those things contributed to that. And the other part was really using the floor, like pushing into the floor more. And that
Mm-hmm.
also made me realize, man, I didn't really transfer weight all the way. I kind of stepped, but I didn't necessarily, step all the way.
Yeah.
And then so all of those things really were kind of like aha moments, um, pertaining to body movement. And so now I am basically at the place where I'm revisiting all of it, and I have to go back and recorrect my movement patterns in order for me to do it correctly. And the funny thing, Robin, is that when I actually push into the floor and when I feel the bend of my knee, when I feel the opposite hip coming up,
Mm-hmm.
I feel force being transferred differently, right? So it's actually you feel more stable and you
Mm-hmm.
feel more in control. You feel like you can actually don't have to use as much energy because there's a sense of flow that's happening, right? Like as you
Yeah.
move, it's like the figure eight almost, right? You just transfer energy from one side to another side, and you're using the floor and you're using your body. So it's a lot. Um, well, I think it's easier on the eye, right? If you sort of looking from a side, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
feels a lot better for myself as a dancer when I'm implementing it correctly. But the reason I'm really not just curious, but sort of fascinating about these things because I'm noticing like little things, right? So even if I dance sometimes and I feel like okay everything's going well, but then if I just forget about my arms and just drop my arms and I just
Mm-hmm.
disconnect my arms in any given moment, then like things just start falling apart. Like I just feel like something is missing, right?
Yeah.
So piecing it all together is challenging because okay, fine, your knees might be bending and you may be moving your shoulders, but where are your arms? And what your rib cage is doing in this moment. And so, yeah, a long answer, but I guess there were a lot of those moments.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's something that's really easy to just like flick a switch and turn on. And so you're gonna have
Yeah,
those moments of like, hey, this feels like it's getting better, but then like, oh, I don't know, like if you video yourself, record yourself, you say, oh, my arms are just kind of dead flopping by the side, like I forgot about those. But you know, it's bit by bit, and when it does start to feel better and you do start using the floor and all the movement starts coming up in through your body as it should, it actually creates like efficiencies in how you move. Like it looks better, like you said, but and then it creates efficiencies in how you move, and you transfer that into your partner work. So when you have two people with good body movement, all of a sudden the partner work is obviously going to look better, but it feels so much better too, which is a big part of the fun, I think.
100%, 100%. And with arms, it's such a tricky thing too, because I think I've gotten a bad habit in the beginning, on the first year, to move arms like this when I dance. So I would just dance and I would go like this, swimming arms, right? And so
Yeah,
now
we all did that.
it's taken a while to get out of that habit. And now I have to kind of think of the fact that arms, I almost try to imagine like they just here, they just resting. Like I'm
Mhm,
trying to now not to move them. And so what I've come to realize is when I'm like moving my shoulders, the arms will naturally move, and it
mhm,
feels less awkward, right? Like even like looking at myself in the mirror, it actually looks more cohesive. But as far as the actual proprioception, the feeling of it within my body, it
mhm.
feels a lot better when you just move through your shoulders and let the arms just follow versus trying to do something with your arms. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, um,
It's better for your partner as well. It's going to be very confusing. I mean, you probably talked about this, but like when you're dancing with a partner and you see like the beginners just wiggling their arms around,
yeah,
the follows are going to be very confused if you're a lead and you're dancing like this with your hands, and
yes,
then vice versa. So,
yes. Because I start realizing too, especially it becomes more apparent with advanced follows, more advanced follows, because they respond to every little movement in a different way.
mhm,
So you move your arms a little too much, they start rotating their body, right? Then
mhm,
you're like, what are they? And then you realize, oh man, it's like they understand tension and they know how to
yeah,
do that. So then it's like just keeping your arms here again. It's the same idea, just moving your torso instead of moving your arms.
mhm,
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. I was curious. You in Colombia now, and most classes that
mhm.
you've taken before was in Canada, right?
Yeah. Before I came, yeah.
What is the difference in teaching methodology? What most classes teach in Canada versus in Colombia?
Interesting question. I would say. Hmm, I think I'm very lucky because I found Patrick and Scarlett in Canada, specifically in Vancouver. And besides like actually training with them, um, I didn't take like a lot of other people's classes besides, you know, guest workshops who came to the city or congresses in Calgary um, and Toronto.
Hmm.
So, which would then be kind of like whoever's on the Congress circuit in North America and some more international guests. But I think in general, kind of what a lot of classes lack is like kind of the basics. It's like if your school and your goal is to get people from zero to great social dancer, some schools focus more on performing and stuff. So I guess that depends what the goal of the school is. But like a lot of schools just lack structure. And what I mean by that is like, how have you thought in detail about how you're taking someone from zero to get them there? So like,
Mm,
how are the classes set up? Uh, how, are there levels? Are you letting someone who's in level zero into level two classes and you're not kicking them out and telling them, hey, like you need to go back and do the other class? Or are your classes not progressive? A lot of the time you just show up and they're just like, maybe they're telling you the same thing a million times or they're going over old stuff. So, anyways, I would say Patrick and Scarlett specifically do a very good job at creating a class structure that progresses you. They have
mhm,
various levels. What I dislike very much about Columbia, and sorry, Patrick and Scarlett were also very good at giving technical explanations, which I think a lot of teachers gloss over because they, for whatever reason, I'm not going to critique, but they'll say you'll show up into a class and they're just going to teach a pattern. They're going to teach you a shine pattern at the beginning, and they're going
mhm,
to teach you a partner work pattern. And it's like, what am I learning from this class? Did I learn an individual move? Did I learn an individual technique? Did you give it a name?
mhm,
Is this a new concept? how am I understanding the concept? Did you give me something new that I can actually like understand in my brain that I can then go use in a social? Or did I just copy you?
Right.
Copying someone is very limited use. And so my critique of a lot of the classes down here in Colombia is, again, it's a similar critique. It's like you show up, you're going to do a shines pattern, and you're going to do a partner work pattern. There's probably chances are there's even less technique taught down here because a lot of people will dance growing up and they might kind of have like the basics of their movement and whatever. And the teacher just kind of says, oh no, like you should have turned them here. Okay, but what count? How should I have turned them? What is the technique? It's just not explained. And there's a
Mm.
lot of schools like that. And I think that's the struggle all over the world. It's not necessarily Canada versus Colombia. Although I do think you'll probably find a difference between a lot of like Latinos who are teaching classes who have maybe never taught foreigners before, and then, people who are not of the culture. I typically feel the chance that someone's going to give good technical breakdowns, they've probably had some exposure teaching foreigners, or they're not from the culture themselves. But that's not to say there aren't good Latino teachers, because there are. For example,
Mm.
there is one school here, Blood Dance Company, and Jeremy is the director, and he's actually very technical, and he gives lots of technical explanations.
Mm.
And I do appreciate his classes. And actually, a lot of good dancers have come through that school in terms of dancers in Medellin. Like a lot of them went through there. So yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is technical breakdowns, the teacher actually having a specific goal, concept, thing that they want to pass on to the student for that level, instead of just defaulting to copy my pattern, which I think is very lazy. And there's too many people doing that.
With being technical, when you took Patrick's and Scarlett's class, think do you feel like they did a good job kind of maintaining that balance between providing good class experience and enough technique to where they were able to retain people who come into their classes? And the reason I'm asking for it is because I've heard this sort of opinion that people don't like to learn a lot of technique. People would like to come to class to socialize and just get a few moves to be able to do social dancing, for the most part.
Yeah. And I think that's a great question. And just like any company or brand, what does Nike stand for? What does Adidas stand for? What does Reebok stand for? You have to decide, like, who are we? And what is our focus? What are our values? What do we want to be different? How do we want to position ourselves?
Mm.
And so I haven't actually given the classes myself in terms of being the teacher, at Patrick and Scarlett's studio. So it might be hard for me to comment on that because I'm not necessarily tracking who's showing up again or not. But I would say that that is a very common struggle for a lot of teachers. And so what I would say is, are you going to be the school where everyone just has fun and maybe doesn't really like learn much? And I think there's a lot of schools like that, which is fine. If you're just getting people into the community and like that's kind of your goal, it's like we take outsiders and we bring them in and they have fun, they're going to smile, they're going to make a bunch of new friends, they're going to leave laughing. That's great. That there's a space for that in the market. And
Right.
then the market also needs the school that's going to level people up, because if people aren't leveling up, the people who are at a higher level in the community, if they don't find people to dance with, they're going to get bored and they're not going to go to socials. So a lot of people will complain and they'll say like, oh, the advanced dancers don't want to dance with me, or they don't ask me to dance, or the teachers don't ask me to dance, or whatever. I think most more advanced dancers are going to dance with the beginners, but they don't want to dance with the beginners all night long. So if there's only beginners there, naturally they're going to get bored, because
Mm.
when you have a comfort zone that's small, that's fine. But as soon as your comfort zone is really big and the amount of things you can do has expanded, you're going to be very, very bored doing the nothing. So they need to have someone that's on the edge of their comfort zone, pushing them, because the reason they got there in the first place is because they have a growth mindset and they like to be good at things and they like to try new things and they like to be surprised or they like to be challenged. So if there's nobody giving them that stimulation, they're naturally going to be bored. So you do need to have those fun schools that maybe don't really help people level up a lot, and just like introduce them to the culture so it gets people hooked. So now they're in. And then once those people decide, okay, now I actually want to get good at this because I'm kind of hooked, which is pretty common with salsa. There's a lot of addicts out there.
Hmm.
Actually, two new friends that just arrived in Medellin. One was from Honduras and one is from the UK. They're absolute addicts, and it's really fun to hang out with them and just nerd out. But I think there's basically a long answer to your question. Each school needs to decide what is their focus and what they're going to be good at, and play to their strengths. Because there's some teachers that are super fun, amazing people, but they're not top level and they don't know how to level up people in technique, but they can introduce people to the culture. And then there's going to be people like Patrick and Scarlett, who I think are very good at leveling people up. But then to their defense, I also think they're quite entertaining and fun to be around. So
Mm.
I do think that's a struggle for teachers, figuring out how to level people up with not making certain people bored, because everyone in the class wants something different. Some people just want to be there to socialize because they've been at work all day and just relieve some stress. And
Mm.
then you're going to get the addicts or the nerds that are just like, give me the technique because I really want to get the triple spin, or I really want to, improve my body movement. But not everybody in the class. There's lots of conflicting desires in the students, and
Yeah.
that's the hard part for a teacher.
Are you able to monitor or kind of gauge how people perceive online offering that you have on your website? Do you have some sort of survey or kind of anything that you can look at and say, okay, people like the program, or people would like to more of this particular element in the program, just to see how you're doing with that.
Um, I don't have like too much feedback, like surveys baked into the current product. And I think the reason for that is, at least for what we have right now, is that I don't necessarily have the power for Patrick and Scarlett to, fill new lessons and fill the gaps because they're quite full with their own priorities and stuff. I think if I was doing my own course, which I plan to do at some point, I'm going to be a bit more hands-on with the feedback and then the iterations on improving it.
Hmm.
So I do agree that that's an important thing. I also think that just by the way the program is presented, it ends up attracting certain people. Or, and put another way, the way I speak in my videos on YouTube, I have a certain personality. And honestly, the program, which we worked with Patrick and Scarlett to put together online, follows that personality. It's like we're all kind of like growth mindset people,
Hmm.
and we want to help people progress, and we're quite technically oriented. So that kind of shines through. And you can do a free trial, number one, so you can see what you're getting. You decide, is it for me, is it not? So people can just self-filter. And
Hmm.
then if they actually buy it and it's really not for them, within the first 30 days, like you can get your money back, no questions asked. So I think it kind of like self-filters that way.
Right, right.
But there's lots of people that write in and say like, oh, hey, like I like this, but it'd be nice if you had this extra lesson, or
Hmm.
do you have any lessons on this? So you do get feedback in terms of what might be missing, or what people are really excited to see.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think you are certainly unique in the sense that you a dancer, but you also doing this thing online, right? So it's unique enough to where you have online offerings, but you also trying to kind of gauge what how people doing with that, what they like and what they maybe looking to for some improvements. I think what you're doing is awesome, man. Like it's definitely it's such a cool idea, I think, to provide any kind of online learning opportunities for people utilizing technology that we have. And I just wonder how as we proceed with this AI age, what's going to happen in the next few years, you know,
Mm.
and how
I
that's going
think
to impact everything.
honestly, like something like dance is probably going to be the last thing to be disrupted or affected in a big way, because like you need the tactile feedback, like it is an in-person thing. And some people are like, oh, but like why would I take classes online? I mean, online classes is no different than when people used to learn, like when I was a little kid and there was like the VHS tape and you put it in the VHS player and
Right.
watch anything. You could learn anything on TV. You could do an exercise video, an aerobics video, whatever you wanted to learn, you learned it through the TV. Then it was DVD, and now it's just online on the internet. So that's not really like a big jump in evolution. It's just kind of like a new medium. And I think there's just like so much benefit from it. Cause like, for example, this guy that I just met from the UK, his name is Ewan. So he came to Medellin. We ended up meeting up because we were just at a social, or just like common friends. She's like, oh, like you're the YouTube guy, like you do dance dojo. It's like, yeah, okay. So then we got to talking, and he is like a super like self-motivated guy. So he is from like a town outside of London. So most of the best dancers and most of the best teachers are going to be like inside of London, but he's like, I
Mm.
don't know, like an hour and a half away. So he started learning at a school outside of London, but then he realized like, oh, he kind of like hit his maximum that he was going to get out of the school. And so then
Mm.
he just started like taking every online program he could find. And
Yeah.
he, again, is one of those addicts, those kind of nerds. And
Right.
I went and hung out with him in Cali, Colombia, because he was down there for a month just learning salsa caleña. Um, and I went to the Airbnb because we were there for the Feria de Cali, which is like a big salsa party festival for like 5 days in between Christmas and New Year's. And he
Woo.
was practicing like 5 times a day. I'm just like hanging out on the couch and we're talking. He's like, do you mind if I like throw on the dance club and like, do some acting? Like, dude, knock yourself out. So he's just one of those people that's really taking advantage of this online learning. And I think
Right.
that everybody who feels like either you don't, you're not getting what you need from class and you need some like supplementary material so that you can practice at home or fill the gaps, the things that you're just not really getting from class or the knowledge, or just to practice more because like your teachers aren't at home with you. And the easiest way to practice, the easiest way to get better, you have to make it easy. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you go to the gym but you don't have a workout routine, your gym visit's probably going to suck. You're going to spend half the time being like, oh, what should I do? I don't know. So your effectiveness of that workout is going to be like 50%.
Mm-hmm.
But if you show up and you have your routine, the personal trainer made it for you, i.e., you have an online program, the Dance Club, Dance Dojo, whatever other teacher in the world who has their own program,
Right.
you show up, you press play, you follow along, you learn something. You don't have to think before you show up.
Yeah.
You just press play, you get your 5 to 10 to 20 minutes in, like whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
daily or twice a week or once a week. And that's going to make a huge difference. Because if you're only going to class once a week, and some people aren't even going to socials once a week, it's going to take a very long time to get better. So the more that you can do to help yourself learn and to, I would call it just like satisfying that desire. Because a lot of people, I mean, I'm sure this happens too. You don't want to wait next Wednesday for your class. You want to practice right now, but you're just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do? You search YouTube. Like YouTube's great for some things, but not necessarily great for like taking you to the next level. So that's what I think the online programs are for. And I think they're great tools. Like whatever I'm doing, whether I'm rehabbing from a hip surgery, which I've done quite a few times now,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm practicing salsa or learning anything, I sure sometimes go to YouTube, but then I buy programs. I bought so many online programs for so many
Mm-hmm.
different things. I think it's incredible. I encourage everyone to give it a go if they haven't.
Yeah, and I think you're making a good point because you can find anything on YouTube, but I think the part of a problem that you're gonna run into is that you need structure and you need to be able to execute this structure continuously, right? And so whenever you take a course, to your point, course already have these things laid out for you. So only thing you need to do, you need to establish what your level is or what program you're doing, and you need to stick with this program. All the steps within the program already there for you, and that's the difference between doing completely new research from scratch and try to maybe do some videos that over your level right now, above your level, versus
Yeah.
logging into your program, buying a beginner program, and you have 10 lessons that all you have to do just like consistently execute those steps one by one and practice it, right?
Yeah. And another thing that I really think is a benefit of online, which you could kind of do in person, but I just never see anyone doing it. I think maybe I got this like when I did gymnastics or something. They would give you a piece of paper and they say, here's level 1 and here are all the skills that you need to master in level 1, and then you do a test. And then if you can do all those things, then you move to level 2. I don't really see that in salsa classes very often. And when you show up,
Mm,
they don't give you a piece of paper and be like, okay, we're in level 1. These are the 10 things that you need to learn and master in level 1. Because then you have it in your brain. You're like, okay, here's the names, here's the skills. I have to master this. And then I'm going to do some sort of test and move on. But online, even if you're not doing some sort of test, at least you can see the names of the skills and the lessons you have in, let's
mm-hmm,
call it level 1. And you can say you just have like a bit of a roadmap and you have a sense of the bigger picture. Whereas
mm-hmm.
I don't know if this has ever happened to you. Have you ever gone to a class and then the teacher's like, here's a whiteboard. We're here. These are the things you need to learn to get here. And here's how we're going to do it. Has that happened to you before?
Not in a salsa class, no.
Yeah. So that's what I think is kind of missing is like people like to know the roadmap. And there's a lot of people who
Right.
are quite logical, cerebral, especially who want to learn online. And so you can kind of get more of that structure. You can see where am I going? And for me, I really appreciate that because then in each level, you can say, these are the moves that you need to learn. And you need to learn these ones and get better at these ones before you try the next one. Because this move up here is just this move, but in a more complicated context, let's say.
Hmm.
Like, for example, if you learn a left turn just with a partner and one partner does a left turn, you need to learn that left turn before you do the cross body lead inside turn because the cross body lead inside turn is the follows walking and they're doing 1.5 turns to the left. So it makes sense that they should probably learn that like in the spot first before they do it with a cross body because it's like adding a layer of complexity.
Hmm.
And so just like simple explanations like that, where you say, like, here's the base move, and then here's the layer of complexity that we're adding, and here's how you keep adding more complexity. I think for a lot of people is helpful.
Yeah, yeah, makes a lot of sense. With classes, lots of times you come in, you'll get a move, you'll get a pattern, and you see it being executed, and you can a lot of times even do it if it's not too difficult. I'm speaking for myself, obviously, right? If sometimes even in intermediate class, I remember when I came in, I was overwhelmed. But in the beginner to like beginner two classes, it's manageable. But I think part of the issue just there's a lot more behind those moves and patterns, right? It's understanding how to execute them because there are little things, nuances within your own body movement and nuances within the partner work that have um, have not been explained. And so
Mhm.
then you run into these issues where you learn it on your own, and it certainly can be simplified if those things been addressed, like you said.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's a couple of things there. What I was going to say is one, if, for example, someone is just, you go to a class and someone's just giving you this pattern and they're doing, I don't know, an inside turn, which let's call the inside turn as like the base element or the base move. But
Hmm.
they're doing it with some different handhold and they're adding a turn for the lead. So there's just like, there's more complexity. But for the
Right,
follow, it's an inside turn. And
right.
so the person that goes to this class who's never been kind of explained that, here's how things advance and here are the pieces, they can't really pick that apart. They're just going to say, oh, there's two people spinning at the same time and like this looks hard. And they don't know how to actually like interpret it with their eyes. Whereas
Hmm.
someone who's gone through a program that's structured and has learned like the right and left turn and the inside and outside turn with a cross body, they're going to be able to see, oh, they just did an inside turn, but then they added a hook turn for the lead while the follow was executing the turn. So you can just pick apart the little pieces and you can actually understand what you're seeing. And so I think kind of getting to your point is once you have those foundations and someone's taught you those pieces, you can show up to a class and they don't even need to teach you the pattern. You just need to see it and then you could probably repeat it. But you're only going to be able to do that if someone has given you those principles or those foundations and you've built that up. Because most people don't get that, unfortunately. So I've been lucky enough to get that from Patrick and Scarlett. So now I can go to like an advanced class or I can pretty much watch any social dance video I want on the internet
Hmm.
and I could replicate what they're doing if I have a partner and I work through it because I'm able to now pick apart what is that thing that they just did? What was the follows footwork? Okay, the base move was, I don't know, inside turn, or they did 2.5 inside turns. Okay, what did the lead do while the follow was executing that turn? Oh, the lead turned to the right and was doing this handhold. So it's like because I have the tools now, I can pick those things apart and learn from a lot more people because now I have those foundations. And I think that's really
Hmm.
cool um, when you do get taught in that way, because then you're being taught like how to fish. So someone teaches you how to fish. Now you can just go out fishing and enjoy fishing. Whereas if you just go to class and they're not teaching you those principles or those basics, then you're kind of like the prisoner. Like you're going to class in handcuffs, and you
Mm,
you just have to keep going back to class and learning their patterns and learning their patterns and learning their patterns. And I'm not saying this is the goal of a lot of teachers, because I think a lot of people just aren't thinking this way. But that's kind of how it turns out. Like, because this person is now reliant on the teacher. Oh, I just need a new social dance move.
mhm,
Well, if they taught you all the individual moves, you wouldn't need patterns anymore, because you don't need to think in patterns. You're just going to start executing things on the fly based on the position you're in with your partner and whatever handhold you have. And because you've done it enough times, things are just going to start popping into your memory,
mhm,
um, which is a really cool experience when that does start to happen, because most people at the beginning are just executing patterns they learn in class. Like that is probably 80-90% of social dancers,
mhm.
which is unfortunate, because then you don't really get the in the moment connection with the partner in the music, because they're just going to be like, oh, I do this, then this, then this, then this.
Mhm.
And while that's happening, there's like a horn hit, there's a there's a
Right.
there's a timbali going on, like whatever, lots of cool stuff.
Yeah.
But then like, nope, that's not in the pattern that I learned in class, so we're not doing it. And so
Hey,
the
man.
beauty of salsa, going back to the beginning, is the body movement and the musicality. And so you can start playing and enjoying the body movement and musicality only when those bases, or those basics and fundamentals of partner work, are in your body, so that you're no longer straining, especially as the leader, straining your mind to think about, oh, how do I make sure like my partner's not bored? Okay, yeah, like right turn, left turn, switch hands, right? Like there's no room for musicality and body movement in that, when your brain is melting trying to remember the pattern
Right.
from class.
Yes.
And so it kind of goes full circle. If you don't have the basics of partner work and being able to survive and not have your brain melt, then you're not going to be able to enjoy the coolest part about salsa dancing, or probably any dance, which is, the connection to the music, to yourself, and to your partner. So
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. You definitely touch on a lot of things there.
yeah.
It's definitely not just what, but how. A lot of times
Mhm.
that I think kind of been overlooked. There's definitely part about being comfortable moving on your own and connecting with the music. That's an observation sometimes I see, or rather I make sometimes, is that people executing moves, and I'm trying to get out of it. I'm a victim of it as well. But instead of thinking in terms of moves, thinking in terms of connecting with the music, and just see
Mhm.
where the music will take me. And because I see
Yeah.
people, Cubans really good at that. Cubans can just groove to the music, doing basic step and look amazing, you know,
Yeah.
and throw a
It,
couple moves, right? Like they have that kind of for one thing, they have very lively music. It's very high
mhm.
energy music, right? So they start moving. They have that style where there's a lot of rotations and stuff, but they really enjoy dancing. It's like
Mhm.
they there for music and they're there for celebration, and you can feel that, right? And that makes
Yeah,
a big
totally.
difference, when you see people actually dance, people who doing basic but they put their soul into this. It has a different effect when you see it from a side.
Mhm.
So
And
absolutely, I think to kind of you know full circle, in order to get there, have to be comfortable with your own movement. You have to be able to connect with the music, use the music as an energy source, as a guiding force, and then allow yourself, obviously, to lead a partner and have a good experience. And all these things take time. So tell people where they can find you, find the website, and what you guys currently offering.
yeah, I just wanted to quickly add something there, because I think you hit on something that is so important, and that's like, if you can't do it by yourself first, it's not going to go well with a partner.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of people just, I mean, they'll write in and they'll complain like, oh, but I don't have a partner to practice. I'm like, screw the partner, just practice by yourself. Because if you practice by yourself and you do your shines, or you practice your body movement, you practice your basic, you practice your musicality, only then, once you've nailed it yourself and you're starting to feel comfortable, can it show up in your partner work.
Hmm.
It's the last step. And so for me, one of my biggest focus now are just getting better movement so I can express myself, and better musicality so I can express myself to the songs and have more fun. And so when I started working on my movement and musicality alone, and just like really, really listening to the songs, because like I'm not a natural at all. I don't remember the lyrics to any songs. Latinos will know
Mm-hmm.
the lyrics to all songs. I don't know how many Latinos you know, but it's ridiculous. It almost seems natural, but it's just their culture. So I had
Right.
no lyrical memory, not even in English. And so I was always focused on the patterns and the moves. And again, that there's a roof on that in terms of how much fun you can have. And so when I started working on this stuff myself, listening to music and be like, oh, okay, this pattern's repeating, or I just memorized the song because I've listened to it so many times. Then when I would just dance by and get something as simple as like, oh, move my shoulder down, like the littlest, simplest thing. Or if you're just really uncomfortable, just tap your fingers on a desk. If
Mm-hmm.
there's a horn hit that's like dun, 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 like whatever, dun, 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 like that's step one. Like you don't have to be able to move your body yet. Just
Right.
make the brain connection with your fingers or something. And then
Right.
as your body movement gets better, you'll be able to move your body. So as soon as I could do that a little bit by myself, even something simple, then it could all of a sudden show up in partner work. So it's like, oh, I know the horn hit is coming. I'm just going to give like a lock to my partner and put their hand over their head, like when that happened. And so, again, like you said, practicing by yourself is like so huge and important. And again, the internet classes help so much with that because you can just do it from home. That's all I have to say.
Most definitely. No, most definitely. 100%. 100%. You have to be able to do it on your own. You have to be able to control your own body and find a way to express music on your own, because I think there's something to be said about expression. If you're not expressing music in your own way, it doesn't mean you have to be Terry or, Fatty Fusion. Just what is your way of expressing music? Because if you're not
Yeah.
expressing music, you what are you going to do on the dance floor? I mean, you're there to dance to the music, right? And
Yeah.
so if you can do those two things, I think it really helps. I know it helps me, and sometimes, especially when you lose yourself to the music, when you connect with the music, you can really be sort of in a different mind space to where you kind of flowing at that point. So even if your technique not perfect, but at least you connected with the source, and then you can continue work on
Mhm.
technique.
Yeah. And your partner is going to feel that. Like your partner is going to feel the difference between someone who's like technically good and is just executing move, 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 versus you who is maybe less technically good, but like you're smiling, you're fun, you hit the horn hit, like you
Yeah,
you changed what you were doing because the song changed.
correct, correct.
If you're just like flatlined the whole
Right,
time because
right, 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 right. Yeah,
if you're just flat, something relaxed and the song picked up the energy. So I did something exciting. Oh, and then there was a horn hit. And then I did something like that, even if it was basic. So yeah, partners really appreciate that.
yeah, and it's the best part. It's the best
Yeah.
part when you trying to go with the music. And so you made a point about Spanish lyrics. I don't speak Spanish at all, so I know a few words in Spanish. So my only solution right now is really hone in on the musical aspect,
Mhm.
listen to the music, musical instruments. Yes, sometimes it could be funny if I don't understand the song, other people do, they see me dance, whatever, it's whatever,
Mhm.
that's besides. I can't really help that right now, but I can
Mhm.
help listen to the music, trying to be as musical as I can. Like you said, accent certain things. If it's more high energy, I respond to it. If it's lower energy, I'm not going to be jumping around like crazy. If it's a salsa, slow salsa romantica song, right? It calls
Mhm.
for a different type of interpretation versus
Yeah.
like a energetic Cuban timba,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, music, let the music be the guide. Absolutely. We can go on forever, my friend. I love it,
Cool.
but I want to be respectful of your time, and I think it's getting dark here. You can see, like, gradually I'm
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
disappearing
Yeah.
in the darkness.
This is the
Uh,
marathon, the 24-hour
yeah,
interview.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, tell people where they can find you, not just you, where they can find Dance Dojo, and what you're excited about to offer right now.
Sure. So thedancedojo.com. So the before dance dojo. So thedancedojo.com. And it's the dance dojo on Instagram as well. What I'm most excited about right now, honestly, I had a hip surgery last year, so I'm just recovering from that, and I'm just excited to get back dancing again, increase my level, and I'd like to do some of my own programs as well. Most excited about musicality because I think that's probably the biggest gap we have for everyone. And I think a lot of people are learning musicality as like an afterthought or at the end. And I think we can start learning it really, really early on. So I'm excited to make something with that. But besides that, we've got a pretty comprehensive salsa program that's really good at taking it from zero to a pretty good intermediate, higher intermediate social dancer who can have a lot of fun. So check it out if you haven't before. And as always, I really appreciate your questions and chatting with you. So I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely, Robin. Thank you so much for taking the time. Looking forward to next time. Thank you for your knowledge, perspective, and your thoughts. And be good, man. I hope that hip recovery is coming along well.
Thanks, man. And I hope we can connect sometime. I don't know if I'll make it to Florida or you can make it down to Colombia, but it would be great to hang out, dance, and just nerd out and talk more about salsa.
Absolutely, 100%. We'll stay in touch, man. We'll stay in touch.
Cool.
Be good, brother.
Take care. Bye,
Bye.
guys.